Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to call this committee meeting to order. Was this Wednesday, the 7th at 8:35? Oh, excuse me, 9:35. I'm an hour off. Welcome you guys and welcome everybody to the meeting. And first, let me make sure that, and James, we do have a quorum, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That is correct.
We do have a quorum. And by doing so, can you identify all of the members?
Sure. So certainly you're a voting member.
Yes.
Deputy County Administrator Frederick Perry is a voting member and is on the line. Myself, James Worthington, Managing Director of Development and Planning, is a voting member. Travis McDonald, as the manager of engineering or development control, is on the line and a voting member. Allison Duncan was added as a voting member in the last meeting, and she is the manager of planning and zoning. And Chris Henderson was added also as a voting member in the last meeting as the chief building official for Douglas County, and is on the line as well.
Got it. Thank you very much. And so with that being said, so we have a quorum, and we'll go ahead with this meeting and call this meeting to order. With that being said, did everyone get a chance to look at the minutes?
Sorry, I just noticed our clerk is not on. I apologize. I need you to hold on 1 second. So.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second. I apologize for that.
Okay. Damn, you probably got them up on the other link as well, huh? And bear with us, guys. And Allison, while we're waiting, don't look like, unless I'm missing it, I don't see Amy.
Hey there, I was actually just trying to give her a phone call. So,
Okay.
Yeah, so I will put myself back on mute and just try to give her a call real quick just to make sure she got my email.
Sounds good.
All right,
Sounds
thank
good.
you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now Clerk Johanna Womack is on the line. I apologize for that.
That's okay. That's all right.
All right, so Johanna, just to reiterate, we can, I guess, go back just a second. I'll let you know what was said, but basically we were going over who were the voting members. So we had started in with Commissioner Mitchell as obviously a voting member, Deputy County Administrator Fred Perry, myself, Travis McDonald, Allison Duncan, Chris Henderson.
Correct.
So
I don't recall Frederick being a voting member in the meetings. And I went back and listened once Travis sent me an email a couple of days ago. I'm saying he's not, but I don't think it was in the meeting.
Okay, so I thought previously the county administrator, just as the position, was on there.
That was my thought as well.
Okay.
So, Commissioner, do we need to make any kind of motion or that, or are we just good with that?
I think we're probably fine.
Okay, I'm good.
Yeah. And
okay, so apologies for all of the confusion, everyone. That's on me. There were multiple invites, and I had deleted one, and I think that may have created more confusion than if I'd have just left it.
Absolutely. And we started the meeting at 9:35, by the way, so you'll know that. Okay, so
back to you.
Okay, so now we'll get ready to go through the minutes of actually approving the minutes. Did everyone get a chance to look over the minutes? And James, can you give the dates of the last minutes that went out?
Yeah, the minutes were for September 7th, 2022, and I did send those out to all the voting members.
Got it. And hopefully everybody had a chance to look them over. And if so, are there any changes, any additions, or any adjustments that's needed?
No, sir.
Hearing none, the minute stands approved. So let's jump into this residential development committee meeting minutes. I mean, not minutes, but agenda.
All right, so the first new discussion item would be the presentation and discussion on minimum square footage requirements for new homes with some options within Douglas County, and that will be Allison Duncan. Allison?
All right, good morning, everybody.
Slideshow to share, so.
Yeah, so I'm gonna share my screen.
Hey, Allison,
Yes, sir.
is that the piece that Amy was really trying to be a part of, or is that?
It is a piece that she has expressed interest in, and I did just leave her a voicemail.
Okay.
So would you like to, I could start with the comprehensive plan update first, if you would prefer.
That's what I'm gonna say. Let's shift that down and give her a little time, to get here. And if she don't make it by the time you get, as we push it all the way down to the latter part of the agenda, then we'll just go on without her. So.
All right, give me just 1 second. Let me get to that slide. All right, let's try this again. I'm gonna share my screen again, and let's see. Hang on just
This will be an update on the comprehensive plan that Allison's team's been working on.
Yes.
Okay. Can y'all see the slide that says comprehensive plan update?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am.
Okay, great. So again, as Director Worthington had said, what I am sharing with you here is just a brief update about where we are in the comprehensive plan process. You will recall that we were before the Board of Commissioners. Gosh, I feel like it was maybe back in the summer, May, June, somewhere in there, to kick off the comprehensive plan, to get it started. We have been busy working with our consultant team, getting things going. And so here is just an update of where we are. I would like to give a shout out to our awesome steering committee. They have been fantastic in keeping us going. We have had 3 steering committee meetings so far, and want to make sure that anybody who is interested to know what we're doing, all of this information is on our website. So when you see these little boxes, over here with text, that's basically just a screen capture of all of the information that is on our website. So you can go there now while I'm talking, and you can get a copy of all the meeting summaries, all the presentation boards, all the PowerPoints, everything that we're using for the steering committee meetings. As a reminder, steering committee meetings are open to the public. So anybody who would like to participate, you don't have to be a steering committee member. You're more than welcome to come and join in for all the fun that we're having. So we've had 3 steering committee meetings so far. We had a great community engagement opportunity at our September Saturdays event. It was very well attended, as you can see from the photo there on the right. We got some really good feedback. We had a tent set up. We had several different interactive exercises, and I was there. Jaquel Johnson was there, and Phil Schaefer. We enjoyed, 2 beautiful Saturdays of really wonderful weather out there, talking with the community and getting lots of good feedback. So once again, you can go to our website and you can see a summary of all of those comments that we received from September Saturdays are posted on our website. We also kicked off the project with an interactive map. So we used Social Pinpoint, which is an online platform, and we put out a map so that folks could go and they could zoom in on the map and they could leave a note. People could come behind them and they could leave comments to the notes that had been left previously. So we had collected some really good feedback about things that the folks were just at a very high level concerned about going on in their community. And so that is the image that you see there on the left. I think that the Social Pinpoint map is still available. We have stopped promoting it as heavily, and we have started transitioning to our online community survey. So you can see a screen capture there on the right. We are very pleased to report that as of Friday, we had over 270 responses already to our online community survey. We've been promoting that for about 4 weeks now. So again, people can still go and leave comments on Social Pinpoint, but you can see a summary of comments again on the website that were received on the Social Pinpoint. A lot of what we had heard from the September Saturdays community engagement event and the Social Pinpoint is what we used to create the questions for the community survey. So, so really getting some good feedback from the community survey. I'll share a little sneak preview of that when I do my presentation on the housing sizes. But again, we'll encourage everybody, if you haven't taken the community survey, please go to the website, click on the link, and share your feedback. We'll probably keep this open through the middle or end of December so that folks can continue to give us their feedback. We've also started to get some good feedback from the consultants in terms of existing conditions analysis. So we've got a good existing conditions analysis for both Winston and Lithia Springs. Those are the two small area plans that the commissioners asked us to undertake. We will present that today and tomorrow at our small area studies, and then we'll make a draft of that information available on the website. We've also started posting some maps on the website. And so again, as a reminder, we have a project blog that we maintain as a part of all of our big projects in planning and zoning. And so you can go to the project blog and you can see these existing conditions maps, as well as a lot of other cool information that we've been trying to dig out and share from, you know, some of our old comprehensive plan documents and some of our other past planning efforts, just things that we think that the community would be interested to know about and learn as we continue this effort. So all of that information is available. And then that brings us literally to today, where we are so excited to say we have our small area workshop for the Lithia Springs area. That's happening today at 2 p.m. From 2 to 7 p.m. We'll be over at the Mercer University Douglas campus. We hope that we have a great turnout. So anybody on the call, anybody with an earshot of this message, hope that y'all will join us today. And then tomorrow we'll be over at New Mountaintop Baptist Church for kind of a similar exercise for the Winston area. So we've done some really good community engagement, trying to get people out for both of these events. We've put ads in the Sentinel. We've had good community engagement through our communications department on our e-newsletter, as well as our Facebook page. We've done direct emails to a number of folks that regularly engage with the planning and zoning department. We've done direct emails to all of our stakeholders who have participated in the process so far, and anybody who's given us their email address. And so hopefully we'll get really good turnout for these events. But again, hope to see you there today. Drop in anytime between 2 and 7 p.m. for that. So just an overview of where we're going to be going next. We'll take the month of January and really start to compile all of our draft concepts. And then starting somewhere February, March, we're going to do what I'm kind of calling the Comprehensive Plan Roadshow. So we anticipate, taking the next several months, probably through around about May. We'll start to literally take it on the road, right? We're going to go out into the community and we're going to identify as many opportunities as possible where we can make presentations about, these draft concept materials. And then we'll have a website where we can give people, a code. They can go back to the website and they can use tools like the survey and the social pinpoint to give us their feedback as we work to kind of refine those final concepts. So we anticipate we'll be doing some intercept presentations at our libraries, senior centers, park facilities, and places like that. We're going to be partnering for some of the community-wide events that we already have scheduled coming up early in 2023. We're going to schedule some regular P&Z, just open house hours where folks can just drop in and sit and have a chat with us at any time about what we're doing. And then we'll reach out to all of the commissioners to see about maybe scheduling some time on your upcoming commission town hall so that we can engage directly with the citizens in your commission districts. We have 2 more steering committee meetings scheduled for February and March. And then we will be also working through this time to integrate all the other required, plan elements so that we can have a final presentation to present, final draft to present to you around about May or June is where we have it in our original schedule, so that we will be ready to submit to ARC and DCA for their preliminary review, again, June or July. Our final kind of drop dead deadline for this is October of 2023. So we still have a minute. But we are the planning department. We like to work ahead a little bit, make sure that we have plenty of time to get things done. But we feel pretty good about where we are right now in terms of staying on schedule with everything. And I will stop right there and ask if you have any questions or comments about any of this.
Thank you. Well stated. I just do have just 1 or 2 questions here. So Allison, how I noticed the steering committee meetings, not only how often they are, but how do you let people know when these meetings are taking place for the community so they kind of get engaged, knowing that they don't have to be a part of the steering committee, that they can come out and just engage with you guys?
Sure. So all the steering committee meetings are published on our website.
Okay.
And we did set this schedule at the beginning of the year. And so those dates haven't changed.
Okay.
So they're all on our website. We also make sure that in all of our community engagement events, we tell people, hey, come to the steering committee. If anybody reaches out to us in between steering committee meetings, we make sure that they're aware when the next steering committee meeting is, and they know that they're welcome to attend for the steering committee meetings. And again, just want to really underscore that, that it is open to the public for anyone who wants to participate, and that for those who can't come, we make sure that we put the information on the website so they can go and see what was discussed. We also are hosting these both in person and virtually, right? So that we have that option for people to participate whatever way is most comfortable for them.
Got it. And that was going to be my next question about, are we doing it virtually as well, though? But the location is on there, even though you're talking about the times and dates, but the locations as well is on each steering committee meeting that you guys have, correct?
They are. They generally have been in our conference room number 4 here in the Planning and Zoning office. We did move the last steering committee meeting down to the multimodal center, and we did post that online in advance. And when we send out the email reminders, we do post the location in the email reminders. We did move that down there so that we could kind of put people around tables. It's a little bit of a bigger space, so we could put people around tables and work in small group, settings down there. And so we will see, depending on what the format of the next meeting is, we'll see whether we return back here to conference room number 4 or we have it down at the multimodal center. Quite frankly, I have both rooms reserved. So, so we again, we're the planning department. We try to, anticipate in advance, what we'll need, just so we can be prepared for whatever that format will be for our upcoming meeting. And we'll make sure that we get that published as soon as we know what that's going to be.
Got it. And when you take this steering committee project on the road, will one of the stops be, let's say, the Lithia Springs Senior Citizen Center, or it'll be a combination of that and a host of others?
So the Lithia Springs Senior Center is definitely on my radar. I have not reached out to set up any of those dates or times. They're not set in stone yet, so I haven't reached out to any of my partners in the county yet to see what might be a good option. But we talked about a similar thing when we were doing the Scenic Byway update, when we would, the goal of kind of the Intercept, presentations is that we would just sort of show up at places and be available during times when they may have other events going on. So for example, at the libraries, when they have their, weekly reading groups, we'll just maybe be there hanging out in the library and be like, hey, can I give you a card about the comprehensive plan update, and kind of try to talk to folks. So it's one way that we do it. If it makes more sense to say, hey, we're going to be here on a Tuesday from, noon to 2 p.m. or whatever, so that we're very flexible and we can do it in whatever way the facility thinks would work best to coordinate around their existing programming. But the idea is to get out to our libraries or senior centers or parks, places where the community is already gathering, so that hopefully they'll just kind of come in and run into us and learn that there's a process going on, in addition to having set times that they can, come to the courthouse and talk with us or go to other, regularly scheduled events. Would like to just say how much I appreciate Wendy Cottle and all the work that she's doing. And she and I have talked about, opportunities for us to work together with some of the other regular events that they're doing as a part of constituent services. So it's going to be a lot, and stay tuned. I'll have a list of all of that as soon as we get it finalized.
And last but not least, so you're confident that we'll make the deadlines. I mean, it looks like we're way ahead of schedule, but don't want to hit October and be forced and rushed with anything.
Sure thing. I mean, right now I would say we're on schedule. I'm comfortable with where we are. You may recall when we first came to y'all back in the summer, I acknowledged that we were trying to get out ahead of things, right? Because we didn't know if we were going to have another COVID, slowdown.
Right.
That was certainly one of my concerns back then. We seem to be doing okay right now. I would say the big piece of it is really upon us right now. That's going to be where we take all the feedback and we put it together in our draft materials, and we put it out in front of the community to get their response. To be quite frank, that's the piece I don't want to rush. So that's why I feel like we tried to leave ample time in the schedule to make sure that the community has as much opportunity as they would like to put eyes on our draft materials and give us feedback. So I anticipate this next phase, taking a minute, right, just so that we can be very thorough. I would encourage Director Worthington or Phil Schaefer to jump in if they feel differently. But I feel pretty good about the comments that we've received and the feedback that we've received so far. I feel like a lot of what we've heard is generally consistent with what we heard through the strategic plan, you know, because we're trying very much to tie the comprehensive plan update back to the feedback that we got in the strategic plan. I feel like the community has been very consistent in what they said in the strategic plan, as well as the scenic byway update and some of the other work that we've been doing. So I feel like we have a good sense of the community's priorities right now. We just want to make sure we give plenty of time when they actually see that translated into the maps, that they say, hey, this is great, or no, you got it wrong. So we can address that.
And you did mention this, I think, in reference to at least touching bases with the other, my other colleagues to make sure that they're in the know, kind of what's been said, and I don't know kind of how often will you guys try to touch bases with them, but I hope that we definitely carve out some time to at least give them, you know, 2-on-2 or something as an update.
When you say your other colleagues, you mean the other board of commissioners or the other elected
ma'am.
officials?
Sorry, yes.
Okay, yeah. So for sure, we anticipate that probably February or March, we'll have a presentation at our joint Planning and Zoning Board of Commissioners meeting, just to give y'all an update of where we are. But we do regularly email through your legislative aides to give you updates, you know, of where they are in the process. And then, you know, we are required by state law to have a liaison to this process. And so Vice Chairman Kelly Robinson was appointed as our liaison. And Commissioner Robinson has been fantastic in participating in the steering committee and, you know, being very present, you know, in the process as well. And we hope we'll have a good turnout from the commissioners at our upcoming small area plan meetings. I understand District 4 Commissioner and Commissioner-elect plan to be at our Winston meeting tomorrow. And we would certainly love it if you have any time to pop by today for our Lithia Springs. No pressure, but Lithia Springs or Winston, right? We would welcome all of our commissioners at any of our small area plans that we're doing. So.
Okay, I appreciate it. Okay, with that being said, I think I've taken the floor long enough. So are there any other questions or anybody got anything for Allison in reference to this project?
I don't, Commissioner Mitchell. Would like to say, Allison, job well done. It sounds like you have all the bases covered. I'm actually out of town at the moment, but when I get back in town, I'll be back on Sunday. I'll make sure that I touch bases with you next week. I would have liked to set in on the steering committee just to sit in and see how it's conducted for Lithia Springs. Obviously, I'm not there, so I can't do that. So I'll just follow up with you once I get back. But sounds like you had all the bases covered. Sounds good.
Absolutely. And I'll be happy to forward you the presentation materials that we plan to use. I have all of that from our consultant, so I can forward you that if you'd like to review it, and we'll be glad to give you an update when you're back in town. I just really appreciate your interest. So.
Absolutely. Please do, Allison. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Well, Allison, great job. Great job.
Thank you.
Want to go on to the next item, or want to go back into?
Yeah, so we will go back to the presentation on the minimum square footage requirements with some options. And Commissioner, just so you know, I did resend that invite to Amy McCoy, and I did call her cell phone and leave her a message. So I see that she's joined, but
we'll catch her up later.
Yeah, we'll just have to touch base with her after the fact and see
okay.
if there's any input or anything. So
I'm good.
But, all right, Allison, take it away again.
Awesome, yay. Can y'all see my screen for the?
Yes, ma'am.
Great,
yes.
All right, cool. I just want to make sure very upfront that I acknowledge both Phil Schaefer and Jaquail Johnson. Particularly Jaquail has done a lot of work on this. He is currently representing Douglas County at a meeting for the LCI call for projects through ARC. We do anticipate making an ask for an LCI update for our Highway 92 corridor. So he is at that meeting this morning, but just wanted to acknowledge both Phil and Jaquail for their assistance in pulling this information together. And so here's just a brief recap. Y'all will recall at our September meeting, we did share information with you, particularly in regard to the fact that we do have options for building single family homes under 1,800 square feet. Generally speaking, 1,800 square feet is the minimum, and that requirement has been in place for several years, you know, pretty much since around 2004. We do have zoning categories that encourage a variety of housing types. These are going to include both attached and multifamily housing, and those can be below 1,800 square feet. So when we talk about the 1,800 square foot minimum, we are largely talking about single family detached, but just as a reminder, we do have options for apartments, townhomes, and other kind of higher density type housing that does give you some additional flexibility. We also have the planned unit development zoning category, and that does allow for development to come in under their own development standards. So that would be another way that, again, you would have flexibility if you wanted to come in as a part of a master plan development, and you could create your own development standards, including reducing that minimum square footage for housing. But again, to just underscore the fact that our housing minimums are largely driven by what is in our base zoning code, and we've had a range. So going back to some of our earliest, practical zoning, starting in the 1970s, it was around 1,000 square feet. And again, we're at 1,800 square feet today. So we did look at what could be an option for some sort of cottage cluster housing. That was one thing that we had said that we would do in the last meeting, is look at what could be that option in addition to the options that we already have that identified previously. We spent a little bit of time with this. So when we talk about this housing type, I think that what we've sort of landed on are some ideas that would look at a 1,200 to 1,800 square foot kind of by right minimum zoning. When I say by right, that's something that we could approve administratively here in the Planning and Zoning Office. But then if we wanted to do any variation, from that 1,200 to 1,800 square foot, we might run that through as special use approval, right? So if you wanted to come in and do something, like 1,000 square feet or 900 square feet, that's something that maybe you go back to the Board of Commissioners, but otherwise we're looking at something within that range of what we already have as something that we could approve by right. We are looking at the possibility of increased landscaping requirements and some higher order of architectural design requirements. And I'll share a little bit of information about why I would propose that a little bit later in the presentation. And then just looking at, kind of other codes and other places that have done this, just kind of overall emphasizing that buildings and site elements have to be well maintained. Everything has to be maintained in a good state of repair, and making sure that when you start getting development this dense, that any deterioration is something that's going to require sort of a higher level of scrutiny for code enforcement. So let me just kind of jump in and say how we landed on that number. This is a map. You saw this last month, last meeting. That was in September. I apologize. But we kind of dug down into the data a little bit more. And so the table that you see there on the right kind of shows the approximate numbers of how many buildings that we have within this range of square footage. So you can see at those smaller numbers, anything like 1,100 square feet or less, we just simply don't have, a lot of buildings. There's, about 54,000 parcels in Douglas County. And then of those 54,000 parcels, we have, roughly, I don't know, Chris can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I would say roughly about 28,000 building units, based on, again, my analysis, for this presentation. So when we talk about, getting into specifically residential units under 1,800 square feet, it's not a lot of units, but there are some, and they concentrate primarily in our older neighborhoods in Douglas County, right? So Lithia Springs area, and then particularly that halo boundary sort of immediately around the city of Douglasville that probably kind of, again, built out first due to proximity to the city center and to infrastructure like sewer. So pause there. See any questions about any of this so far, or any corrections or additions that Chris or James or anybody else that deals more directly with building would like to offer to this?
Not for me. I just say good information, good maps and all. Appreciate everything.
Yeah, Allison, and I did some numbers checking, and you're pretty much right on schedule with the numbers that you presented.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And also,
All right.
Allison, Amy just joined us a few minutes ago, right in the middle of your presentation. So I just want to let you know, it looks like she got her hand up. So I think she may have a question.
Oh, hey, Amy.
Hey, good morning. Thank you so much. I tried clicking on the Teams one, and I saw that this one was then added. So thank you very much for resending. My question is, with the square footage versus the number of units of how we have in the county, do we have the estimated when those were actually built?
I don't have it today, but I can get you that information.
Okay, because I think with a lot of these that were built, obviously were probably going to be prior to probably 1980s. And I know a lot of our changes kind of happened within the 2000 range. So I think, I mean, I would be curious to see, since that rule changed, you know, did that kind of stop that momentum from these type of smaller units being built? And the reason I ask is because I sat with one of the people for Habitat for Humanity, and that was something that they was even mentioning about finding smaller footprint homes, and so that's kind of just where I would go with that. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, no, I can absolutely share that information with you, or I'll kind of do that analysis and I can share it out to the whole committee. Because I also think, to your point, the smaller footprint homes are going to be the older homes. Now, again, we have a pretty solid older building stock, and I think there's a lot of advantages to older homes. But it's also something that we want to make sure that we're cognizant of, right? When we say, well, we do have a fair number of houses that fall within this housing footprint, but they're also going to be older houses, right? And so we acknowledge that we're not delivering newer houses, you know, that are within this building footprint range unless you get into an attached housing product. So I think that's all a good point. And yeah, I feel so. What I feel like I have is, you know, reasonably accurate year built data within our GIS and our tax database, and so I should be able to correlate the two and give you give the committee a sense of what that looks like, and I'll be glad to do that. So,
thank you, ma'am.
Yep. Very cool. So I have a few pictures to jump into next. That Jaquel did some great research, and just want to share with you some examples. And again, these are basically all local examples. You know, as I was putting this together, I put an emphasis on not kind of going to the far-flung corners of the world, you know, to bring information back to you, right? I just want to make sure that I underscore the point that everything we're talking about is fairly normal for communities around us. So this is a project called the Cottages on Vaughn. This is in Clarkston. These are units that range between 200 and about 500 square feet. So this is a micro community or tiny home community. Under what we are thinking, we would propose, this would require a special use permit from the Board of Commissioners. This is not something we would be able to approve by right, but it does start to introduce some of the elements of sort of that common courtyard or common gathering space, common green space, and then smaller houses situated around that common green space. I shared these two projects, one in Loganville and one in Hampton, because y'all may recall Jim Chapman actually came and presented a project here in Douglas County. It was approved by our Board of Commissioners, and it would have looked very similar to these. Ultimately, Jim Chapman Communities did not build that project. I think they ran into some environmental conditions on the property and they walked away from that project. But again, just as a reminder, we have looked at, you know, opportunities for smaller residential units. And this is a builder that has been interested in working in Douglas County previously. I believe he actually has a project under construction in Villa Rica as well. So this is Walker Rose Circle. This is another project that I think is a good example. So this isn't so much of a cottage court or cluster development, but these are six or eight small footprint houses that was built as a pilot project in the city of Madison to just show that you could do good infill development on small lots and small footprints in an urban. So again, Madison is still a pretty small town rural community, but kind of within a built out area. So this is a project that I think could be a good model for some of that infill area around the city of Douglasville or Lithia Springs. And again, it's been very popular, you know, since it was initially constructed. And then there's a few examples that are moving away from some of that cottage court or cluster design and into more sort of new urbanism or traditional neighborhood development. But again, you don't have to go, you know, to the other side of the country to get good examples of this. We have the Pine Woods. I'm not really sure if they're still calling it Pine Woods or Trilith, but this is sort of the project that was built around the studio in Fayetteville, Georgia, and it's a good example of kind of traditional neighborhood design. As is Serenbe in Chattahoochee Hills. This is a good example of kind of, you know, cluster development, not necessarily small house sizes, but you get into the smaller lots, which could lead to sort of a smaller house size in certain areas, as well as Clark's Grove, a good example of traditional neighborhood design, and that's just down the road in Covington, Georgia. North Cove, not at all small or affordable houses, but a great example in Peachtree. I said Peachtree Center, that should be Peachtree City, I apologize. Peachtree City, Georgia, of again, small footprint, small lot size, clustered neighborhoods. There was infill just over in Peachtree City, and very lovely community. So I share all of this to say, right, the question is, where do we go next with this? And I share all of this to say that as we've been working on our comprehensive plan update, probably the one thing that's changed a little bit in my thinking is kind of feedback that we're getting from our steering committee, right? And that's kind of like, maybe not all of these projects fit equally in all parts of the county. You know, so when we talk about something that's approved by right or something that's approved as special use permit, this is kind of our working draft of our character areas. You will see this change by the time we start to present in 2023. You know, but again, these character areas just sort of start to break the county down into larger geographic areas that sort of are defined by, you know, their historical periods of development, their existing footprint on the ground, and things like that. And so as we, let me move forward. As we started talking about these various models, whether it was sort of a conventional traditional neighborhood design, some sort of cottage court design, or just some sort of like clustered, like rural cluster development, this is where it's been really interesting to engage with our steering committee and get their feedback. And I think the key takeaway is that when we talk about all these different models, I mean, yeah, we're talking about smaller footprint lots, smaller footprint housing, but they may not all fit equally in all of our different character areas. So if I had to say one thing that we might need a minute to sort out, right, is that as we get into each of these different character areas and we think about all the different typologies that would be appropriate to that, we're starting to get some good feedback from our steering committee that we may need to do a little bit more work about what is working best in each area. So for example, that kind of conventional traditional neighborhood development, that probably could work, you know, kind of in this immediately adjacent area around the city of Douglasville. And some cottage court cluster type development could also probably work in that area and could maybe work when we get into sort of our traditional neighborhoods when we get a little bit south of the city of Douglasville. But this rural type development, I probably wouldn't do a rural cluster close to Douglasville, right? There wouldn't be necessarily any need, you know, to focus so much on that model there because that's got a more higher intensity footprint. But it might make sense in some of our traditional neighborhood areas. And then it might work really well, you know, kind of when we get out into the Dog River or when we get out into some of what we're calling our resort conservation areas out there near Foxhole and the Preserve and things like that. So this is one area where I would say our steering committee of our comprehensive plan has really opened my eyes to this idea that we probably need to do a little bit more work on figuring out where these different typologies would be appropriate. But by way of wrapping up, I would share with you a little sneak preview from that survey that I had mentioned previously, because we asked some questions that were tailored to the feedback that we were getting from the community, from September Saturdays, from the Social Pinpoint interactive map. So again, 270 plus responses so far, and of those, over 80% of the respondents are residents of Douglas County, self-identified residents of Douglas County, right? And so we did ask a question, when you think about housing, what types of housing do you think we should have more of here in Douglas County? And you'll see I have identified that at this point in the survey, you know, roughly a third of respondents have said we need smaller, more affordable single-family homes, right? So I think this underscores exactly the conversation that we're having here. Now, again, we still have the majority of folks that are pretty attached to the traditional single-family home model, but that doesn't mean that we can't look at the opportunities like we're talking about here today for those smaller, more affordable single-family homes. And then I would also share, again, going back to the point that I had made earlier on about landscaping and architectural design requirements, we had asked how much they agree or disagree with the statement that they would like to see more design guidelines to control architecture and landscape of new development in Douglas County. And you can see we have about 60% of the community giving us the feedback that they would agree somewhat or strongly agree that they would like to see more control over the architecture and landscape that's coming into Douglas County. And again, if you go back to the feedback that we received from September Saturdays and from the Social Pinpoint, all of which is posted on our map, you can see very directly where we got these questions from. So just to wrap this up, so where I think we would go next with this, and again, we're welcome to have the dialogue about this. We need to complete that comprehensive plan update and figure out which typology is appropriate in each character area as a part of the comprehensive plan update. I think right now, the plan is that we would present the comprehensive plan update, the zoning code and the zoning map, or excuse me, the unified development code and the zoning map. We would present all of those for, kind of one big update at the same time to the Board of Commissioners. And so it's possible we could draft a text amendment in at the time we do the unified development code update that could address some of these things. But I think that concludes what I have to share with you today, and I'm happy to kind of talk further about any of this, including next steps, if you think that there's something you would like to advance sooner rather than later with any of this. So thanks very much.
Got it, Amy. Good stuff. Good stuff. Allison. Amy, looked like you got your hand up, I think.
Yes, sir. Thank you again. Allison, great job. Taking the opportunity to come and sit with you in your office to kind of get a better grasp of what was going to be presented. I truly thank you for taking that time to do that with me. I do have a few more questions. If you could go back two slides based on the survey. Go back there you go. So one thing that I wish probably would have been on this survey, because when people think single family, they do think single family detached, when I think we should also be combining single family attached, like condominiums. I see we have apartments on here, but I think in order to continue the narrative of grooming more stakeholdership in our community, we really need to dive into more ownership, because that's how we're really going to grow our tax base with our actual owners. And so, I wish probably would have added that part component to it for people to understand that, not everybody will be able to do stairs. I have certain health challenges myself. I have gone through several spine procedures. Even though I'm young, I'm not going to be young forever. And I know that stairs will eventually become a challenge for me. So, but I don't want to feel like I have to move out of Douglas County if I can't ever find a ranch. So I think we probably should be adding that to the mindset for people to understand the difference between the two. And again, I think that will help us in our direction of saving and preserving green space as we think to the future for our infrastructure needs with transportation, and again, creating communities where there's more live, work, play, that we have that green space and not just building residential detached lots. So I would love to see that as a part of that further study. And then going back, because I know I just jumped on through your presentation, when you had the under 1,300 square foot recommendations, I believe you had in there that there would have to be certain landscape requirements as a part of that special permit. Is that correct?
We would propose, landscape and architectural requirements. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you and again, I hate it if you just got through explaining that, but would you mind just recapping what that was again? I'm just trying to make sure I have it for my notes. So as we go back and I talk with the Realtor Association, just so that I can further explain that, because my biggest concern is for someone who's building one off or, things of that sort, would this now become more cost prohibitive by having to go and get extra permits and extra time delays for those that are wanting to build that extra proper, asset on their property?
Sure. So we don't have any specific details yet of what the landscape specifications. We would probably look at our quality growth overlay as a starting point, but we would want to make sure that we tailored it, to be appropriate, for the specific neighborhood. I don't foresee it as anything that would require an additional level of review. Now, if you're wanting to get something under, say, 1,200 square feet, that would be a special use permit coming to the Board of Commissioners. And again, we're just putting that idea out there mostly because, we don't have a lot in that space, right? So if you wanted to get into something that was truly like that tiny home, that 400 square foot or something like that, my guess is it's something our board would want to put eyes on. I could be wrong about that. They would certainly tell me I'm wrong about that, right? If and when we brought this forward for a text amendment. But in terms of the permitting process, this isn't anything that would require a level of review or scrutiny above and beyond what our typical review processes would be. So you may have to have a zoning action. You would likely have to go to the Development Review Committee, for anything that's a major subdivision. And you would just, work through that process and receive all of your permits the same way any other project would.
Okay. So in the process, if this is somebody wanting to add, say, an ADU to their current property, would this still comply with that? I mean, would they still have to go through that route of that special permit for adding on to their property? Let's just say mom comes in and, we don't want to build, we only want to build a 700 square foot house. Is that going to stop them from being able to do that?
Right, so accessory dwelling units are already something that we have some discretion to approve administratively. You have to have a minimum of an acre, and then you have to have at least twice whatever the base zoning is right now. So for example, if you have a 1 acre lot and you are in an area that has sewer, right, you would have to have a minimum of, Phil can help me out if my math is wrong, but 30,000 square feet. So you'd have to have a 30,000 square foot lot to be able to do your accessory dwelling unit. And then your accessory dwelling unit can be a maximum of 60% of the size of your principal dwelling. So we don't have a minimum, we just have a maximum. So we can approve that by right without it having to go to the Board of Commissioners.
But that's only if you have a minimum of 1 acre.
But you have to have an acre. And we used to have to take every accessory dwelling unit to the Board of Commissioners. And they did give us permission to have some degree of administrative approval. And I don't know, we can certainly revisit the 1 acre. And Phil, I welcome you to chime in here. We don't have a lot of requests for people wanting to build accessory dwelling units below 1 acre. Usually where we've seen most of the accessory dwelling units has been on the larger acreage tracts. But I don't know, Phil, if you want to share any kind of differing opinion from that, I would welcome that. And Phil may not be on the.
No, I don't think Phil is on with this.
Okay. We are trying to cover 4 different meetings with 3 of us this morning. So we also had another meeting that he was going to try to cover if he was able to this morning. So, but yeah, my sense is that the request that we get most frequently is for the accessory dwelling units on the larger tracts.
Let me ask you this real quick, Allison, then I'll let this be my last question, because I know a lot of this I could probably ask offline, and just for interest of time, respect for everyone's schedule. Because of the density and, obviously cost of living, cost of building, things of that sort, I'm thinking if that for those requirements, I see that potentially that's only accessible for those that are on the west side of the county or northern side of the county. But however, I think for people that are kind of in that multi-generational mindset now that need to consider for costs, the cost of living. And as that's gotten higher, the need to compile those multi-generational housing, I think if that was more inclusive for under 1 acre would definitely help, especially for those that are looking to add additional income to their house. Maybe it's not for mom, maybe it is to add an extra rental income, that I could see the need for that being less than 1 acre. Because then that would include the east side of the county. But I'm definitely welcome to again, sit with you guys, have that conversation of seeing, maybe putting that part of our purview to look at. I think it's something worth investigating. And I'm sorry to keep throwing more stuff at y'all every time we have these meetings.
No. And again, we're certainly open. We're certainly open to that. The reason that we kind of have it at 1 acre is when you get below 1 acre, you get into some of those smaller lot subdivisions, right? So 2 things. One is the thing that you and I talked about, fairly extensively before, which is this sewer versus septic, right? And so I would say, so much of the county is still on septic, right? And that is one of the things that really kind of hinders the ability to even do the accessory dwelling units, because if you have to install a separate septic tank, then you have to have 33,000 square feet usable soil for both, right? So we talked, you're right, I won't belabor that here because you and I had that conversation, previously about that. And I think that probably more than anything is the reason we don't get a lot of these requests for properties under under an acre, is it has more to do with the environmental design standards, than it has to do with, kind of anything else driving that. But I think beyond that, if you're talking about kind of some of these older established neighborhoods, we worry about, parking, we worry about, just the neighbors being aware that there's now going to be, another family, kind of in a space that's a little bit smaller and a little bit tighter. So as much as anything, the special use permit for anything under an acre is to give notice to the community, right? And to give the community a voice in the process. And so again, I'm always welcome to have that conversation, but I would just kind of share that as sort of the two things that I think are driving sort of the acre, as the cap is the environmental health requirements are a big part of it, but then it's also making sure that the community has a voice in the process of what is happening in their neighborhood if we're kind of increasing the density in their neighborhood above and beyond what they maybe assumed that they had bought into.
I get it, guys. It's quite a few things that needs to be kind of coming together to make any of this come together. Meaning, is it about the affordability of it, the cost of building it, the size of it, so the lot size, sewer and septic versus septic. So we still got work to do, but at least we can have these, sidebar conversations to hopefully get there. So, but good enough. I think great job, Allison. Good stuff. I think we still got some more, conversations that needs to be had, but I think this looks good. I don't know if anybody else have anything else to add to that.
I'd just like to say great job, Allison, and
Yeah.
to the team. That was a lot of fantastic information. Well done. And I agree, we do have some little more homework to do, but it's good to see we're at least looking down the road to, trying to devise a path forward. So appreciate everything. Thank you.
The possibilities are great, guys. I really do think that it is. It's just that we just got to make sure that we're sure, and we've done all of our due diligence in all of this. So, anybody else got anything else to add to this? And I know, Amy, you guys will have some sidebar conversations. So will I, Allison. So, thank you again.
Chairman of the committee, certainly this is Chairman Jones, you respectfully Chairman of the residential committee, wanted to just thank Allison for doing her due diligence, and I echo you too, Commissioner Mitchell. We are at least having the conversation, and that's important. So that's a start, at least, of a path forward. So thank you all, and thank you, Ms. McCoy, for being with your tenacity and bringing good information, and certainly as the real estate community continue to help us galvanize a pathway to look at affordable housing and also smaller footprints for our seniors. And also, thank you for mentioning stairs, because I have stairs and I'm beginning to try to see what I can do to get rid of these stairs. I agree. I'm just kidding, but yeah, I agree. Stairs can be a problem at a certain age. Thank you. That's all I have for you, Chairman of the committee.
Thank you very much. Okay, Allison or James, we're going to move on to the next topic, or are we done with that
All
one?
right. So moving on, our next item is future meeting topics or speakers. I would like to first start by saying that I think another good meeting topic would be another update on the comprehensive plan. Our next meeting would be in March. So I don't know, Allison, is it likely to be enough to give another update in March on the comprehensive plan to see where you're at?
Yes, absolutely. I will put that on our roadshow. That will be one of our stops on the roadshow.
And that may be a way to keep everybody informed, that obviously these are recorded, so we can pass these along to folks that wanted the quick update as well. So any other topics or speakers that anyone has in mind, anyone wants to know anything about, or we need any votes on?
I think we're all good.
All right. And then the next item is closing remarks. And again, I'll say, well done, Allison. This was mostly your show today. So part of the traveling Allison show was great. So thank you for everything. Anyone else?
So this is Allison. I just want to thank all of y'all for your interest and support in this work, and remind you that we will be Lithia Springs, Mercer University Douglas campus, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. is the facilitated portion of our workshop today, and then 5 to 7 is the drop-in open house to kind of see the outcome of some of that. But we'll take any amount of time. You can drop in at any point from 2 to 7 p.m. And then again, similarly, tomorrow we'll be over in Winston at New Mountaintop Baptist Church. Really appreciate them hosting us. And it'll be kind of the same thing. From 3 to 5 p.m. we'll have a facilitated workshop, and then 5 to 7 p.m. drop-in open house. But any amount of time you're able to give us for either or both of those dates, we would be really grateful to have you pop in and share your feedback.
And Allison, I know you've already done this, but if you would just send a small note to the Board of Commissioners, just so they'll know, and definitely the District 4 Commissioner P-Elect and both the commissioners out that way, so they'll know that, you know, just a reminder about this. So I would send that out to these guys if you would, please.
Absolutely, we'll do it. Thank you.
Okay. Outside of that, James, I think we covered the agenda.
That's it. The next is just to adjourn the meeting if there's nothing else. So
With that being said, if there's anything else anybody wants to speak out on, please speak up now or forever hold your peace. With that being said, hey guys, thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will adjourn this meeting as of 10:31. Thank you again. Enjoy your day,
thank you
guys.
so much, everyone.
Thank you.